In this video, I'll provide a brief overview of the cellular network. Now, the cellular network was first designed to handle calls, but over time it has been modified to accommodate internet access as well. Now, the word cellular comes from the word cell, and the cellular network comprises of a bunch of cells. Now, each cell covers a geographical region, and within each cell there is a base station. This base station is similar to the Wi-Fi access point. Now, there are multiple users in a cell, and all these users are connected to this base station. Now, these users talk to this base station using the wireless link between them and the base station. Now, a group of these base stations are connected to what is known as a mobile switching center. Now, the mobile switching center is responsible for connecting calls to the wired telephone network. It is responsible for managing the call setup, and it also handles mobility. Now, behind the mobile switching center is the public telephone network. This is how the cellular network was first set up. Now, what is the first hop of the cellular network? The first hop of the cellular network is the wireless link between the user and the cellular base station. Now, there are multiple users which are using this wireless link between the users and the base station, and so there are two techniques for sharing this spectrum. The first one is the combined FDMA-TDMA technique. Now, FDMA stands for frequency division multiple access, while TDMA stands for time division multiple access. So in this combination of FDMA and TDMA, what has happened is the entire frequency spectrum is divided into a large number of bands. So here we can see that the entire frequency spectrum is divided into 5 bands. And that is the frequency angle of this radio sharing aspect. Now, time is also divided into a bunch of slots, and these frequency and time slots are allocated to the different users who want to send any kind of data, or they want to connect to this cellular base station. The other technique that is also used is CDMA, which is code division multiple access. We'll not get into details of CDMA in this video. Now, when the first cellular network was set up, it was primarily for voice. So that is what we know as 2G. So in the 2G system, the main purpose was to make calls. So the way the 2G system operated was like this. So there were a number of BTS, or base transmission transceiver stations, which were connected to which connected the different mobile phones. Now, these different base transceiver stations were connected to something called a base station controller, which controlled all of them. Now, behind the base station controller was the MSC, or the mobile switching center, which was responsible for managing calls and handling them. Behind the MSC was the gateway MSC, which connected a bunch of these MSCs, or mobile switching centers. And then there was the gateway MSC was then connected to the greater public telephone network. Now, from after 2G, what we had was 3G. In 3G, we used both voice as well as data. So what the main architectural change that took place from 2G to 3G was that the internet was separated from the path in which voice was sent. Now, the traditional infrastructure, the legacy infrastructure that was in place for carrying voice, was not equipped enough to carry large amounts of data. So beginning from the 3G network, what they did was they separated the voice and the data parts. So instead of a base station controller in the 2G network, what we have is a radio network controller, or RNC, in the 3G network. Now, the calls that are, if somebody's calling using the cellular network, then from the RSC, the call went to the MSC, and then to the gateway MSC, and then to the public telephone network. But however, if somebody was accessing some kind of data, that is the internet, from the radio network controller, these IP packets were then sent to something called the SGSN, and after that, behind the SGSN was what is called the GGSN. So there were lots of SGSNs all over a country, say the United States, and there were few GGSNs. And behind the GGSN was the public internet. So all these IP data packets, say that started from a particular mobile host, first went to the base transceiver system, then they went to the radio network controller, then they went to SGSN, then they went to the GGSN, and then they went to the public internet. Now, after 3G, 4G and all the subsequent technologies have different mechanisms, and the RNC and the SGS and all these have changed, but essentially the architecture remains the same, and there has this separation of voice and data is still being maintained and is likely to be maintained in the future as well. With this, I'll conclude this lecture.